What inspires us to take action? What gets us out of bed and to take those steps to make the world a better place? Those are the questions I'm going to ask my guest today. I'm so excited to have you here with me today on episode 125 of Scar Bearers. It's 5 cubed. I'm not sure if you have a cube like this, but I do, and I love it. Oh, I'm such a geek. This is Chris DT Gordon. I'm so happy to have you here with me today. And with me, helping me out on the back end of the channel, as always, are Nate and Britton Barron. If you want them to help you on your projects, you can reach out to them at Nate Barron. Well, folks, we're going to get right into it. I mean, I could talk about my website, chrisdtgordon.com. I could ask you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Maybe I'll do that later, though. I have someone I want to talk to. Her name is Andraya Lund. Andraya, how are you today? Oh, try it again. There you go. Oh, technology.
Oh, I am well. How are you doing?
I'm doing very, very, very well. Thank you. And you are a first, I believe, that you are the first guest I've gotten from my wife because you guys went to school together.
Yes. I've known Becky since the 5th grade.
Oh my goodness. I'm sure you have lots of stories that don't pertain at all to what we're going to talk about today.
No. And I don't have a cube, but I do have a panic bell.
Nice.
And a badass button.
That is pretty badass.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's fun to have toys, no matter how old you are.
I agree.
I say that to justify the dozens of Transformers I have on my shelf. Anyway, I'm so excited to talk with you, Andraya, because of two reasons why you are here with me today. The first is more, well, I guess they're both personal. The first one, though, directly ties into the theme of Scar Bearers, which is dealing from those life-changing events that we sometimes face. And that happened to you in your 20s, correct?
Correct.
And so why don't you talk us through that, please?
Sure. So in August of 2000, I had gone out with some friends, and over the course of the evening, we were hanging out with some other people, and long story short, I ended up in a near fatal motorcycle accident. A drunk driver hit me while I was on the back of a motorcycle. And with such force, going the wrong way on the freeway, it split the motorcycle in two.
Oh my goodness.
And I flew across 694 where 694 splits. And I went down that, I think it's like 45 feet ditch, head over tail. There is no medical reason why I'm alive, other than my theory that heaven didn't want me. Hell was afraid I'd take over. They left me here for the rest of humanity.
Well, I am so happy that you did survive. And to give people a context, 694 is one of the expressways that circle the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And so after you landed, did it take, you went down a ravine, you said, did it take a while for the medical crews to reach you?
What was interesting is that, and I didn't know this until quite a while later, but there was a semi-truck driver that kind of was witnessing what was happening, and was kind of seeing some of the lights and playing out, and had the wherewithal to phone state troopers ahead of time. Had he not done that and also pulled aside after this had happened, I would not be here.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you, truck driver. Did you ever end up meeting him at some point, or?
We haven't met in person. However, his name is Shane. He's from Texas. He is a long distance truck driver. or he's not doing that anymore. But every year on the anniversary of my accident, I still send him a thank you card.
Well, that's very sweet. And that's cool. You were able to touch base with him and keep tabs. So, but going back to that night, the medical crews find you, they take you to the hospital. Talk us through that little part then. What was going on? Maybe were you alert, and were you even conscious?
So Shane was actually the individual that, kind of told me what happened, like told me what happened with the accident, told me what happened, how he came upon me. He, those like cord things that like janitors have with keys and stuff.
Yep.
He had one, and he had like a Swiss Army knife. And he had to use it to like get all the dirt and such out of my nose and my mouth. And sorry.
No, it's I mean, it's a huge part of your life. And so
I haven't talked about it in a minute. Anyway, yeah, so it was interesting because he did that. And apparently I had this moment, very true to me form. I had this moment of lucidity, and he has said to me, he's like, it's one of the reasons why I knew I needed to like follow you, see if you were okay, if you were going to make it, and then why I wanted to like stay in touch and see what happened to this woman. But so I kind of came to and had a moment of calm, and he asked me if I knew what happened, and I was wearing like a little backpack, and like my cell phone was inside, and he asked me some questions, and I answered them, and I asked him, I'm like, before anybody comes, can you make sure my shirt's pulled down? He's like, are you really joking right now? He thought it was just so bizarre. And which I tend to do in stressful situations. I crack a joke. Yeah. And then I gave him instructions on who to call. Like I told him how to get into my backpack and how to get into my phone, and to call my roommate and to call my brother. And then I was gone. So
okay. All right. Now you had said you were on the back of a motorcycle. Was someone driving it, or were you driving it?
Yeah, I should have never been on that motorcycle. The individual that was driving it was only supposed to like do this loop in the parking lot, and decided it was going to be so fun to show off and like zoom out onto the freeway. And so, yeah, I should have never been in that situation.
Okay. Well, so they get you to the hospital, and you said you were out. At what point did you regain consciousness?
I was in a coma. At first, just because I had such extensive injuries and bleeding, and I was not supposed to make it through the night.
Oh, wow.
They defibbed me on the way to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And so and then immediately rushed me into surgery, and so I had a traumatic brain injury. This entire side of my face has been reconstructed. I had an orbital floor blowout and a maxillofacial sinus fracture. My jaw was broken. My clavicle was broken. My arm was dislocated. I had this entire area of my skin was gone. This was what was actually causing the most problem at the
your
time.
left wrist.
Yeah, when I flew across the freeway, I did it like Supergirl style, and like flew. And when I went over the guardrail, it
Mhm.
slit my wrist open. So
Oh my goodness.
I don't have any pulse here.
Oh wow.
So I don't know if you can see, but they like, I have a
Yeah, I can
rip.
see a little scarring there.
Oh, a little. It literally is like here to here.
Yeah. Well, um,
Um,
I don't. Well, a little to me is subjective, but yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah,
Um,
it is, you know, it is noticeable. Let's put it that way.
yeah. I wear a watch, so like
Yeah.
most people can see it, but yeah, and then I had like it took me a year to do that.
Oh wow.
But like my entire hand is wire and um screws like that you can kind of see when they
Yeah.
move, kind
Yeah.
of it really
You,
weirds people
do you
out when
set
I
off?
have to
Do you set off the metal detector at the airport, or?
not so much anymore since they've upgraded their technology, but I used to. Um, but yeah, so and then I had significant damage to my spine, my hip. When I had tumbled, my right leg had completely turned at the knee.
Oh man.
Um, I had a Liz Frank fracture, which means like my ankle had dislocated from my foot. So it
Wow.
was just like,
Mm,
I had significant neuropathy issues, nerve damage, that kind of thing on my left leg. Um, it didn't do the same thing, but it kind of twisted off to the side.
okay.
Um, and just, a lot of like road rash. And so yeah, but the TBI injury and then this, and then I had a lot of internal bleeding. I had a ruptured lung. I had a punctured kidney. So yeah.
Wow. It's well, yeah, like you said, it was a miracle that you survived it all. How long were you in a coma? And I guess my second question is, how many surgeries did you have to undergo?
So I was in a coma because of my TBI for 2 weeks, and then they kept me in another medically induced coma for another week and a half because I was just in and out of surgery so much
Mhm.
um, for that, beginning time frame. But I was initially in the hospital and I was at Regions in St. Paul.
Yeah.
Their emergency team was just phenomenal. But I went from, the ICU, and then because of all of the extensive, neuropathy issues and road rash and that kind of stuff, I went from the ICU to the burn unit because they had
Yep.
to like kind of keep me isolated. But
Yeah.
anyway, when I finally woke up, or they woke me up, I spent initially at Regions. I was there for just shy of 90 days. And then I went to transitional care, in which ended up being at the Alzheimer's wing of
Okay.
kind of a nursing home that was next to a hospital, which was awful. And then I was regressing because of that experience,
Oh
as far
wow.
as like, therapies and that kind of stuff, um, just because it was just horrible. The experience was horrible. It was just scary. And it was not good. So I ended up then transitioning to home with a live-in nurse. And I had a live-in nurse and occupational therapist daily for another, like just a little over 6 months.
Okay. And so that probably takes you into 2001 then, correct?
Oh, yeah, it was like over a full year
Yeah.
of just that. And then there was several, I mean, it was a good 3.5 years of recovery was my full-time job.
Mhm. Wow.
Yeah.
And so 2000, you had graduated already if you were in college. Okay. So what were you doing at the time of the accident?
Oh, this is such a classic, just bah. So I had just left my job at Target,
Mhm.
and the night that we were out, I was celebrating my new job.
Oh.
And so the accident happened on a Thursday night,
Mhm.
and I was to start my new job on that Monday.
Oof.
So I was working in marketing, and was going to be transitioning to what is now Clear, or what I think is now still Clear Channel, but was going to be working in the marketing and events department, and had just left Target. So
Okay.
technically I was unemployed.
Yeah. Wow. So when you were able to start functioning independently, not maybe not even, not like being totally on your own, what was your first step back to independence when you're able to start doing a job or going someplace on your own?
Oh, that's a good question. Was actually still going to therapy. Like I thought I just was like making such big girl moves when I didn't have to have someone take me,
Hmm.
every day. Um, that was pretty groovy for me. Um, I started doing some online school, just to kind of get back into that mindset. The OT for it, for the type of TBI that I had, was really hard. Um, I have a plate in my melon, and it it was really challenging. Even still now, I'm a pretty quick-witted person, and I pride myself on being pretty loquacious. And so when every once in a while I have a little glitch in the matrix, and I can't think of a word, or the train of thought leaves without me aboard, it gets me, because I know that it's kind of that residual stuff, plus, getting old.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But
yeah.
yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from with, you're known for being, as you said, loquacious and quick-witted, and then you feel like Ariel singing, that now I can't think of the song, what's that word? Feet.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
come on. I mean, how many words do I know? And I can't think of that one.
Yeah,
So
it happens a lot. I'm like, the thing with the thing. What is that? Like a fork. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, a
Yeah.
dingle hopper.
Dingle
So
hopper.
yeah, so being someone in it, and I have to say, first off, you press that badass button because you are one. I think about, I don't want to say, well, your injury is much worse than mine, but having to go through all that recovery for 3 years, it must have there must have been some times where you felt like you weren't making progress, but you were really, for lack of a better term, killing it. And just amazing people.
Yeah.
And so
Um, yeah, like I said, it took me a year to do this, to
mhm,
touch my thumb and my pinky. One of the injuries that I had on my leg, so first of all, when I had my injury and my brother got to the hospital, the care team told him that, I was in a coma. They told him the extent of my injuries. They recommended to him that they should amputate my leg and my arm.
wow.
My brother, being my brother, he doesn't mince words,
Mhm,
ever, and he's a little bit of a scary dude.
yeah.
And he goes, "Yeah, go ahead, and she'll wake up from her coma and beat you to death with him. I suggest you figure out who's going to fix him." He's like, "Or I'm going to beat you to death." And thank God he advocated for me for that.
Yep.
But the rehab for my leg wasn't just the cadaver cartilage ligament transplant and titanium leg reconstruction and joint reconstruction. The really painful was the nerve regeneration. I had severed my peroneal nerve on the right side of my leg, and that's the nerve that makes your toes move and makes your
Oh,
foot move.
yep.
And so that really required a number of different approaches to try to get that to regenerate. And there's no guarantee that that ever will happen.
Yeah.
Um, so that, like, it took about 9 months for my big toe to, like, my toes just kind of sat like this, right? It
Yep.
took 9 months for it to just go
And that's
with my,
not even an inch, maybe a few
no,
millimeters.
to just move. And like to do that every day for 9 months. You can bake a person
Mm-hmm.
before I moved my toe.
Wow, you're lazy.
I know.
But
That's like the ultimate preemie,
yeah,
right?
I know, right? But no, seriously, the fact that you work that hard to do that is just a testament to your character and to your spirit, because obviously you could do so much more now, but having that resilience to push through and to work that hard for seemingly such little progress,
Right.
to some people would that would be their nope, thank you,
Right.
no, you know so how did you feel when you were able to make that move and then improve upon that?
Right. Well, I always kind of thought, like, at each of those stages, about, you know, my grandmother. My grandmother passed in 94.
Oh, sorry.
And so my grandmother, my great grandmother, um, you know, came to this country as migrant farmers and immigrants. And you know, they they both were very unconventional women in Hispanic culture. In Hispanic culture, especially at that age, they're usually, it's a very patriarchal society, where, they usually stay home and take care of the children. And my great grandmother had 16 of them. So she had lots to take care of.
Yeah.
But, you know, she didn't want to be a migrant farmer. And so she told my great grandfather, like, no, I don't want to do this. And he's like, well, this is all I know. So she had to make a plan on how to get what she wanted. And that mindset, like, has carried through my entire life. That's like very foundational for me. I've spent a lot of my youth with my great grandmother and my grandmother. My Nana did the cardinal sin of getting a divorce. I know. She was Catholic and she worked for the archdiocese and she still got a divorce.
Wow.
Mhm. But both of my grandparents, my grandfather and my grandmother, were also civil rights activists in their own ways, and did it very differently. But I think the stress of the work that they did contributed to the kind of destruction of their marriage, which happens. But when that happened, she moved back home with her mom because that's what you do.
Mhm.
And so I spent a lot of my time with them, and I learned a lot about how to look at things holistically and then break it up into, you make a plan and then, you divide up that plan, and each little step creates a ripple effect and it gets you closer to your goal. And I also learned how to not take no for an answer. Um, So
I think that's worked seemingly well for you.
yeah, I actually really enjoy when people tell me no. I was like, oh, really? Okay. Underestimate
Funny
me.
that.
Be fun.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, so sorry if I fixed my light here. There we go. So you know make these improvements or not improvements. You heal, and you're taking these online classes. I guess we skip ahead a little bit. Where have those actions taken you now?
Yeah. So kind of following that, I ended up meeting because of my accident, I ended up meeting my husband. At the time he was selling insurance, and I needed that because I had a lot of legal cases because of this stuff.
Yeah.
So if I hadn't had my accident, I would not have met my husband and I would not have my child. So there's that.
Okay. Yeah.
So my path would have been very different because I was in a relationship with someone else. So
Okay.
that was weird. Um, and from there, I obviously I had my child, and who is a sophomore at the University of Minnesota. I ended up getting into, at first I was doing events, still I went into events again, but that quickly segued into, weirdly, into staffing. I had to staff these events, and that turned into recruiting, which turned into HR. And then I've, progressed into leadership. And now I am the head of people and culture at Version 1 in Minnesota Rocker, which is an esports and entertainment company here in Minnesota. We're owned by the same people that own the Minnesota Vikings,
Oh wow.
and Gary Vaynerchuk. So we are building the esports company of the future, and I couldn't possibly be happier. I love the people that I work with. I've been working in startups and helping them grow and scale for, oh gosh, the last like 15 years. It's been
Yeah.
kind of my sweet spot, helping, organizations come together. And my methodology, as it pertains to the work that I do, is to really, you know, holistically look at all of the processes, tools, procedures, and everything that the organization can do to help their employees operate at their highest level of greatness. That's my purpose.
So first of all, I have to ask, do you play video games?
That is a question I get very frequently.
I
I
figured.
do not well.
Okay.
And everyone plays video games differently. I play them from more of a relationship standpoint. I like the connection,
Mhm.
I don't play for competition.
Yeah. So what's your go-to game? I'll tell you mine. Mine is the arcade version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Nice.
You
Okay.
could,
I've recently got into Stray. I don't
all
know
right.
if you've heard of it. It's like this dystopian, kind of game where you play as a kitty.
Okay.
It's called Stray. I call it the kitty game. Um,
Whatever works.
yeah, it's great. So
Well, fun. Well, no, that's fantastic that you're able to get back into that field and find your place and feel that you're making a difference and you're taking charge and you're letting all those lessons that your great grandma and your grandmother taught you to build that fortitude within yourself. And not only are you working with video games, I mean, I know it's a bit derivative, but you're also a leader in helping people with change and being progressive. And so can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah. So, you know, the work that I've been doing for a number of years has always encapsulated, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think when you work in HR, and you do a lot of like organizational effectiveness work, and you're the person of color, and usually the only person of color, I kind of look to you to be the monolith of
Yep.
people of color. So, but it definitely aligned with who I am and my purpose and my background and my family. And so it's been something that I've always been, very intentional about. And then following, the murder of George Floyd, I got very intentional about it. My family, my personal family, my immediate family, looks like a Benetton ad. I have, 2 brother-in-laws that are Black. I have, 4 nephews that are Black. I have 2 godsons. I have a niece. Like, these things matter to me. I am Afro-Latina myself. I am an Indigenous individual. I am a person of color. So BIPOC is like, hi.
Yeah.
So like, this isn't just my work and my life's work, it's my identity. And so that matters. And so I got into formalizing the work that I do from a consulting perspective. But then when I went to have a conversation with the sheriff of Wright County about what he was going to do to ensure what happened to George Floyd was not going to happen to one of my brothers, that sparked an entire different kind of movement in myself. And I ended up coming together with some other individuals in the very rural, very white county that I live in, and created a movement and brought together, my background and my education with, 2 individuals that bring these amazing gifts. One is an educator in the county, and another one has more of a community and religious background, and brought together this amazing group of people that were committed to creating more equity and anti-racism awareness in a very white space. It's been really challenging. I've had multiple death threats, and a lot of hate on a regular basis. But as my nana used to say, you can't fight racism without conversations with racists.
Yeah.
So, the work continues.
That's quite unfortunate that you have to face that. And, I apologize on behalf of anyone who's willing to take responsibility for those actions. But, it warms my heart that you're taking that stand and you're allowing people to see you as the leader that you are. Are there any events coming up that you want to share, to let people know that, this group is out here fighting the good fight?
Yeah. So we have a website. It's wccar.org. So a lot of our activities are usually posted on there. We are doing a little bit of a regroup right now. We're trying to look at opportunities to come alongside some partner like some smaller partner organizations. And that might end up having us look at reorging a little bit. So we've kind of put a pause on to focus on infrastructure versus in community engagement at this point. And we're also kind of we're trying to do some work with voter registration as well. So that's really been our focus at this point.
Okay. And so since you mentioned, where they could find the website, how else can people reach out to you, Andraya?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can always follow me on Twitter, although you're just gonna get a lot of esports stuff. And a lot of I'm fluent in GIFs and the occasional F-bomb. But I'm at and then STR the number 8 shooter MN on Twitter. So straight shooter.
Nice.
And then I'm on Instagram, and my Instagram, again, a lot of esports. And then, but also commentary about my personal life a little bit. You can see my little nieces and my kid, and but also, you know, things that are quips and observations about the world and society that we live in. And my view on, you know, our culture and things that are happening. I am not a big fan of cancel culture or those kinds of things.
Mhm.
I really operate from a place of, I want to believe people have good intention. Most people have good intention. And, you know, we have been indoctrinated into a culture that was structured on slavery. And because of that, it's as prolific as the air we breathe. And we don't know what we don't know. And when you do know, then you are, you know, responsible for taking accountability to do better. But it's not about shame and guilt. It's about education and responsibility, so that everybody is allowed the dignity that they should be granted, just by being people.
I totally agree. And we'll definitely have that information in the show notes below. So if people want to reach out to you and find those gifts and those looks into your life, they can do that. And so you mentioned this before, but I am a gratitude guy. So I feel compelled to ask, Andrea.
Mhm.
I think I know the answer because you said it already, but you know, you can surprise me if you want.
Sure.
What is something that has, you know, come into your life that at the time you didn't find it to be a blessing, but you actually look at it from a different point of view now and you are happy that it happened?
You know, what's so funny is, as much as like this entire experience sometimes makes me emotional still,
Mhm.
all these years later, there is a significant piece of me that finds gratitude in it.
Mhm.
For a lot of reasons. Number one, when you go through things like this, you really find out who your people are.
Yep.
The people that will stand by you in these moments, they will be with you forever. Number two, I found my husband and I found my baby. So that's always a good thing. But more often, more than that, there's nothing, nothing that scares me, because I made it through that.
Mhm.
The last thing, going through that allows me the ability to help a lot of other people on their journeys.
Yeah. And
So
that in itself is a blessing, you know, when we're able to give back to others when we've made it through the darkness ourselves.
right, right. And I
So,
think that's what life's about, right?
yeah.
Is finding your own light and then helping others find theirs.
Yeah. And again, I am so in awe of you, Andrea, for what you've not only faced and overcome, but what you continue to do, you know, to help others out. And so,
Yeah.
you know, thank you for that. And before we say goodbye, I have to ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, Rex from Toy Story is my favorite. Who answers anything else?
Surprisingly, a few people have said other things, but
If
he is a
anyone
good
says
one.
Barney, if anyone says Barney, you never, like, you should ask that question first. And if they say Barney, like, just kick them off. Kick them off the
Gotcha.
show. They're not
That'll be my litmus test next time.
exactly. You got to set a barometer. Like, you got to qualify these people.
There is that. There is that. Well, Andrea, you know, I greatly appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please hang on for a little bit after I stop recording, but so much appreciation do I have for you and the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you for creating this space and letting people share their stories and their experiences. I think it's really important, because a lot of times people feel like nobody gets it and nobody's been here, and it can be a very lonely feeling.
Yes. Well, my pleasure. Thank you so much. So, folks, if you want to reach out to Andrea, you can find the information in the show notes below. If you want to reach out to me, You can check the show notes below as well. Also go to chrisdtgordon.com, find out what I'm doing in the speaking space, maybe jump onto my online store to grab a tag shirt like this one. You can also grab the "What is your favorite dinosaur" shirt, so you can have strangers ask you what yours is. And also, please feel free to like, subscribe, share these messages of hope, inspiration, so we can help each other make it through this thing that we call life. With that, I thank you so much for being here with us. Please have a great day. And remember to pass on perfection and go for greatness.